There is a kind of strength that nobody claps for. You will never see it on stage. You will never see it in a highlight reel. You will never see it in the loud, dramatic, screaming match version of standing up for yourself that movies love to show us. And that is exactly why almost nobody has it. Most of us were raised on the same broken advice. Speak up, say your piece.
Explain yourself clearly so the other person finally understands. Set your boundary out loud, with confidence, with the right words, and everything will change.
It sounds good, it sounds empowering, and it almost never works on the people it is supposed to work on. Because here is the truth nobody tells you. The kind of person who manipulates you, who twists your words, who makes you question your own memory of what just happened, who smiles while quietly draining you, that person has heard every argument. They have survived every confrontation. They know exactly how to turn your calm explanation into a fight about your tone. They know how to make your boundaries sound like cruelty. They know how to make you the villain of a story where you were simply trying to protect yourself. You cannot out-argue someone who has spent their whole life winning arguments through manipulation. You cannot out-explain someone who twists explanations for a living. Trying to win on their field using their rules is a fight you were never going to win. But there is another field, one they never trained for, one they don't even know exists because almost nobody ever plays there. It is the field of silence. Not the silence of giving up, not the silence of swallowing your pain and pretending you're fine, a different kind of silence, grounded, steady, and completely unreadable. The kind of silence that gives a manipulator nothing to grab onto. No reaction to twist, no explanation to reframe, no emotion to feed on. And when a person who is used to controlling every room they enter finally meets someone they cannot read, cannot rattle, and cannot predict, something happens to them that they were never prepared to feel. They feel afraid, not because you threatened them, not because you raised your voice, but because for the first time, their playbook does not work. And a person whose playbook stops working starts to feel something dangerously close to powerless. Today, I want to walk you through 6 quiet shifts. Not tricks, not scripts, not things you perform when you remember to. Real internal shifts that, once they take root in you, change every single interaction you have with people who try to control you permanently and without you having to say a word. Let's start with the first one. #1. You stop feeding the fire. Think about the last time someone tried to provoke you, a comment designed to sting, a tone meant to make you defensive, an accusation thrown just to see how you'd react. What did you do? Most of us react instantly. We defend ourselves, we explain, we raise our voice a little, or we go quiet in a hurt, wounded way that still gives the other person exactly what they wanted, a reaction. Here is something worth understanding deeply. When a toxic person provokes you, they are not really talking to you. They are running a pattern they've run 100 times before on 100 different people. A pattern that has worked before. Push here and people get defensive. Poke there and people over-explain. Insult this and people either shrink or explode. The pattern needs your reaction to survive. It's like a fire that needs oxygen. Take away the oxygen and the fire has nothing to burn. I once knew someone who worked under a manager who thrived on making people flustered. Every meeting was a small trap, a sharp comment, a public correction, a little jab meant to knock people off balance. Most people either got defensive or went silent in a way that looked like defeat. One person didn't. They just listened, nodded, answered calmly without any extra emotion in their voice, and moved on. No defense, no explanation, no reaction the manager could use. Within a few months, that manager had stopped targeting them entirely. Not because they won an argument. They never had one. They simply never gave the fire anything to burn. This is the first shift. Not suppressing your feelings, actually understanding at a deep level that someone else's provocation is about their pattern, not your worth. When you truly believe that, the reaction stops coming on its own. And a person who cannot get a reaction out of you eventually stops trying. #2. You stop shrinking. Watch what happens to people's bodies around someone difficult. Shoulders curl in, voices get smaller, eyes drop to the floor. People start managing the room instead of simply existing in it, softening their opinions, watching their tone, becoming careful in 100 tiny ways they don't even notice. This shrinking happens automatically, almost like a reflex, because somewhere inside, the body has learned this person is unpredictable. And unpredictability makes us want to take up less space. But here's what a toxic or controlling person reads from that shrinking, whether they realize it consciously or not. I have power here. My presence changes this room. And that feeling of impact is fuel for them. It confirms their sense of control. Now imagine someone who does not shrink, not aggressive, not defensive, not puffed up trying to prove anything, just calm, steady, taking up exactly the space they were always allowed to take up. Sitting the same way, speaking at the same volume, keeping the same posture, whether that difficult person is in the room or not. To a person used to controlling a room through other people's discomfort, this is deeply unsettling. Because for the first time, their presence isn't landing the way it usually does. There is no shrinking to read as power, no nervousness to interpret as respect. Just a person completely unaffected going about their day. This is the second shift, learning to occupy your own space without apology and without performance, not to prove a point. Just because it is your space to begin with, and no one else's mood gets to decide how much of it you're allowed to use. #3. You stop racing. Toxic people love urgency. Quick decisions, fast answers. Pressure that doesn't leave you time to think clearly. Because a person who is rushed and makes worse decisions
Says things they don't mean and reacts instead of responding.
Have you ever noticed how a difficult conversation with the wrong person always seems to speed up? Suddenly you need to answer right now. Suddenly there's no time to think it over. Suddenly staying calm feels impossible because everything is moving too fast to process. That speed is not an accident. Whoever controls the pace of a conversation controls the emotional temperature of it.
And people who thrive on control instinctively push the pace faster, because a fast pace keeps you reactive, off balance, and easier to manipulate.
The shift here is simple to describe and hard to practice. You choose your own pace, regardless of the pressure being applied. You take the pause. You let the silence sit there, even if it feels uncomfortable. You answer when you're ready to answer, not when someone else demands it. That pause, that unhurried, unapologetic gap between their words and your response, communicates something no sentence could say as clearly. I am not on your clock.
I will engage with this on my terms, not the terms you're trying to force on me.
That is a quiet kind of power, and it is one almost nobody uses, because it requires something most of us were never taught: the ability to sit in discomfort without rushing to end it. #4. You stop needing something from them. This is the one that changes everything, and it is also the hardest. As long as you want something from a difficult person, their approval, their apology, their acknowledgement that they hurt you, their change, their understanding, they have leverage over you. They can dangle that thing just out of reach. They can almost give it to you and then pull it back. They can make you feel like it's always one more conversation away.
And as long as that want is alive in you, you will keep coming back.
Not because you're weak. Because wanting to be understood, wanting fairness, wanting acknowledgement, these are deeply human, reasonable needs. They just don't work with people who were never capable of meeting them in the first place. The shift is not pretending you don't care. It's arriving honestly at the understanding that what you're hoping for simply isn't available from this particular source, and it never was. Not because you gave up, because you finally saw clearly.
The moment that happens, something shifts permanently.
There is nothing left to dangle, nothing left to withhold, no more waiting for the apology that was never coming, or the change that was never going to happen.
And a person who has nothing left to want from someone is a person that someone can no longer control.
#5. You build a life they can't touch. Difficult people, especially in close relationships, tend to slowly shrink your world. Friction with your friendships. Doubt planted about the people who love you. Small comments that make you pull away from the things that once brought you joy, until, without noticing, your world has quietly narrowed down to just them.
The most protective thing you can do is refuse to let that happen, or rebuild it if it already has.
A full life. Friends who see you clearly, hobbies that have nothing to do with proving anything to anyone, goals that exist because they matter to you, not because they'll impress someone who's impossible to impress anyway. A person with a full, rich life outside a difficult relationship cannot be threatened the way someone with a narrow, dependent life can be.
Because the question that's supposed to keep you compliant, what will you do without me,
already has an answer. You'll be fine. You already are. #6. You find peace that doesn't depend on them. Every shift we've talked about grows out of this last one. Real internal peace. Not the performance of being okay while you're falling apart underneath. Actual peace. The kind that comes from knowing yourself, accepting what you find, and building your sense of worth on that, instead of on someone else's opinion of you.
when that peace is real, everything else becomes effortless instead of exhausting.
You don't have to try not to react. There's simply nothing left in you for the provocation to touch. You don't have to force stillness. Your calm was never dependent on the room's mood to begin with. You don't have to practice not wanting things from them. You've already found inside yourself what you always thought only they could give you. This is what a difficult, controlling person cannot fight. Not with tactics, not with charm, not with guilt.
You cannot destabilize someone who was never unstable to begin with.
You cannot control someone who wants nothing from you. You cannot shrink someone whose life is already full. Hashtag the lake. I want to leave you with one image. Picture a deep lake on a windy day. On the surface, the wind creates waves, ripples, sometimes even whitecaps that look violent from a distance.
Leaves scatter across the top.
Storms pass overhead, and for a while the surface looks like chaos. But go just a few feet below that surface, and none of that exists.
It's still, silent, undisturbed.
The storm above never reaches that depth. Not because the lake is fighting the storm, but because the storm was only ever a surface event, and the depth was never something weather could touch. That is what real inner peace looks like. Not the absence of storms above you. People will always try to create waves. Difficult people will always bring their weather into your life. But if you have built real depth, real stillness underneath, their storm stays exactly where it started, on the surface. Never reaching the parts of you that actually matter. You don't have to fight every storm that shows up. You just have to become the kind of person whose depth the storm cannot reach. If this spoke to something in you, if you recognized someone in your life while watching this, or if you recognized yourself finally starting to build that kind of peace, I want you to do 3 things. Subscribe, because this channel is built for exactly this kind of growth, and there is so much more coming. Like this video so it reaches someone else today who desperately needs to hear it. And comment below. Tell me, which one of these 6 shifts is the hardest for you right now? I read every single comment, and I promise you, someone else in these comments is fighting the exact same battle you are. You are not weak for struggling with this. You are simply still building your depth. Keep building it. The storm will pass. It always does. I'll see you in the next one.